Welcome to Dead Headspace, a part of Silver Shamrock's Horrorcast, a podcast network that includes Killing Time with Silver Shamrock and Unburying the Dead, where we, meaning me, Brendan LaFaro, Ken McKinley, Well Red Beard, and now guest host, exhume classic horror paperbacks for the new generation. I'm your host, Patrick R. McDonough, joined always by my co-host, Brendan LaFaro. Say hi, Brendan.
Hello, everybody.
And returning guest host, Erica Robbins. Say hi, Erica.
Hello.
And today we are talking for a third time with the author of Goddess of Filth and The Queen of Cicadas, amongst many other books, Violet Castro. Hi, Violet.
Hi, and yes, thank you for having me on again. I mean, thank you. This is
Absolutely.
great.
Absolutely. We love talking to you. Big fans of you as a person writer.
Oh, thank you.
And we are all going to actually be able to have a chance to meet you at Merrimack, but we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that. First appearance for V, if anyone's interested, was with Sonora Taylor. That was episode 10. It's titled Fright Girl Summer back in June of 2020. Second appearance with V was a solo episode 36 in September of 2020. Take it away, Erica.
Yeah, so I actually went back and re-listened to those episodes this morning. You've been very busy since then. You were kind of hinting at a lot of things you have coming up. So can you fill us in on what you've been up to since then?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just like publishing is slow, period. It's just slow. So like all the things that I originally talked about, so like Mestiza Blood will be out in November. The Queen of the Cicadas is out now. Goddess of Filth is out now. So I basically wrote another novel, which is with my agent. I have an agent now, my God, which was like, for people who are like, oh my God, it's not happening. You just have to keep going. Like, this is my fourth novel.
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you. Submitting it. So that hopefully will find a home. And I have a novel that I've been contracted to write, but I can't say anything about. And then I'm just cleaning up two other novels. One of them, Maria the Wanted. So hopefully it can go to another publisher because I self-published that. But then I have a science fiction novel that I'm tidying up to find a home. So a lot.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'd love to jump in real quick before we get to any specific books. And, you talked about when I think of you on this episode, a lot of times you'll be telling, or all of our episodes, you'll be telling a story and you'll just jump in and interrupt yourself to offer advice to listeners and aspiring writers. So, you talked about people who are querying to agents and stuff.
Yeah.
You said, keep working, persevere, it'll happen. So I wonder if you could speak. I feel like you're a very good model of perseverance and working hard and just believing in yourself and not giving up. I wonder if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this was my fourth novel, queering, and you have to, again, like you said, you have to just believe in your work. And I think the most important thing, and when querying agents and even querying short stories or anything, is not to let your ego get in the way of when it comes to feedback or constructive criticism, or you need to keep an open mind. A lot of times agents they just can't give you feedback. Don't respond to them. Don't feel you have, like, don't prove anything. The best advice is to say, okay, it's a rejection. Put your head back down and keep working. If you feel like you're really stuck, have beta readers read it and take the information in. Now, you can take it in with an open mind and open heart, and it's a less painful than being like, oh my God, how can they say this? And get into a huff. But if enough people say, this isn't working, then you need to have an open mind enough to say, you know what? Like, be a little humble and be like, maybe it isn't working. How can I rework it? Think about it. meditate on it, put it aside, and then look at it with fresh eyes. And for me, I think you just have to be open to um, growing as a writer, growing as an individual, and keep revisiting things and not quitting, but go with it with an open mind, and just saying, like, look, I expect nothing. This is what I want. However, it is a game. It is a numbers game, but it's also like you need to know when to like revisit something, when to start something else, when to put something aside, and continually grow. And I've had a lot of novellas turn into novels. So if there's something, and short stories turn to, Goddess of Filth was a short story that was rejected. And I, said, right, okay, it didn't work. What is it? And I just revisited, turned it into a novella, and now it's out and people love it. So, you don't have to, you need to be a little flexible when it comes to reaching your goals. I think that's the best way to put it, is be a little flexible when you have a goal, because you don't know how it's going to show up.
I love the flexibility. The one that really sticks out to me, mostly because I've found that it works for me in the past, is just letting that time pass.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't think there's any substitute for looking at a piece of your own work uh, weeks or even months after
Yes.
last left it, because it's I think writers go different ways. Some people get so involved in something they're working on that they fall in love with it. Some people get so close to something they're working on that they never want to see it again, and giving yourself time away from it is just absolutely invaluable.
100% agree.
So, Brennan, it sounded like you wanted to lead into some other books. I'm curious what you want to jump in first, man.
You know what? Violet already kind of took us a little bit toward Goddess of Filth. So you said that that was a story that you received rejection for,
Mm-hmm.
and you went back with fresh eyes to rework it. It ended up there was more story to tell. So I wonder if you
Yeah.
could tell us a little bit. Uh, Oh, this is a tricky one. So, I wonder if you could tell us how that evolved, what got added and what it got expanded to make that become a novella.
So I really wanted to, for that story, well, and it was a short story, to get into an anthology with a lot of big names. And I was like, really, like, oh my God, this would be really great. I'd love to. Um, and it was rejected. And I was upset. I'll be honest, I was upset. And so I said, okay, well, let me just like brush it up. I had Sonora read it, and I just, you know, held it close to me. And then I was contacted by a publisher who wanted the Queen of the Cicadas, but I was trying to get an agent. And I was like, look, I'm holding on to Queen of the Cicadas because I'm trying to get an agent. And so they're like, okay, well, and I said, but I have, can I pitch you something? So I pitched the idea of Goddess of Filth, which was just a short story. And they're like, we love it. I said, all right, give me a couple weeks. And there you go. And that's what happened. They liked it, and boom. I just expanded on the characters. I expanded on the story. I I just sat down and just let it flow. Just let it. I just allowed it to write itself. I just allowed the story to take me where it wanted to take me. And there
Can,
you go.
can you tell us, for those that for potential readers, what the synopsis is?
So basically, there are, I'm from San Antonio, Texas. So you have a group of friends. They're just out of high school, over a year. They've been out of high school a year, and one of them is going to college. And so they're trying to spend as much time as possible with her. They decide to do a seance, kind of like in the craft, just having fun, drinking. They shouldn't be drinking because they're underage. And that's the main character, Lourdes, wants to conjure. She doesn't know what she's going to do. She doesn't have money straight away for college. um kind of like when you're a young woman and you're trying to figure things out. And so she puts all of her intention and energy on conjuring something or someone for direction to be seen and heard. And, well, it was answered, but not in the way you think, and not by the kind of entity that you would imagine. So that's kind of how and then I just went from there. And then obviously I had to expand it to like, you know, other stories. There's also a priest who's really bad. And, you know, I'm not gonna say more about that. I'll leave that for people to find out.
I like what you did with it. I I always, and this is a great example. I'm gonna go back to I think it's when we had you on the second time. You mentioned something that stuck with Brennan and I because we've talked about it privately, and it just we try to it helps us make conscious choices with looking for newer readers. I mean writers. And you said, and this is worth reiterating, I think, for people that haven't heard this from you, that if you see a bar and it is full of one type of clientele and you're not that clientele, you're a little cautious about going in because are you accepted? And that was your analogy with certain, I'm just gonna say shows or anthologies or publishers. Now, I think when you read something like Goddess of Filth, it's a great example of, hey, this is a different type of voice telling a seance story. I think it's fair to say something to do on the spectrum of Catholicism too, because of the whole priest thing. And it's great. I love I've never read that type of way of approaching it. So I just want to throw, I just want to throw that out there. Like your combination of when it's not, for lack of a better term, eroticism, but it's not exactly that. That mixed with the brutality of some of your elements in your horror stories, they're great. That's what drew me to you originally.
You.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Erica, I would love to hear what your questions are for this.
Yeah, well, I've got a couple things. So I I need to stop saying I will read anything except like erotica themes because obviously you've got elements in your book and I was nervous at first. I was like, "Oh no, I'm not going to like it." Like, ooh, I loved it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess my thing with that whole like blending of genres, because I was so like against it, I was like, nah, I don't really want sex in my book, small set. But I don't like it when it's added just for like shock value or just for the sake of adding it in. I feel like in your works, it really adds to the story. I mean, obviously, but it's not like, coming from someone who's nervous about those types of things in books, and like I've read some gnarly stuff where it was like total torture porn, and I was just like, oh boy. But I love the way that you wrote it. It's very personal, if that makes sense. Like it feels very real. And obviously in this book, it was pretty shocking what was happening, but at the same time, it wasn't like jarring, I guess.
Yeah.
So that was my first.
Thank you. Well, I'm really glad that it resonated with you and it was something that you could really kind of feel, because for me, I think, again, like horror, well, you touched on something interesting where you're like, oh, I've read some, I'm not good. I don't want the sex because of I've read this and this and this. And that's because, a lot of women have been excluded from writing sex their way. And in a way that reflects their experiences, because we all go through puberty, then we go through young adulthood, then we become women, then sometimes we become mothers. It's not a guarantee. And then sometimes it's not a guarantee you will be in a marriage. And there's an evolution to who you are as a person, an evolution to who you are as a woman, and an evolution to your sexuality. And that's something that I like to reflect in everything that I write. So that was like sexuality in the beginning of life. And then Mestiza Blood has a lot of sexuality dealing with sex work. and I just wrote a piece for Crime Reads about sex work in fiction. And so I feel like let's talk. Let's there's a song by Salt and Pepper. Let's talk about sex. Let's
Mhm.
talk about sex, baby. Let's
Yeah. It's a great
I
song.
love that song, but like it's just a part of life. So make it natural, make it real. Don't make it gratuitous, and it can be whatever it is to each person. Make it natural, not like um, it can titillate, but that should not be the first intention.
When you were first exploring this publicly in your fiction, I'm just going to talk about me real quick, how it relates to this question. I started really diving into horror when I was at a point in my life, early teens. It was right before I met my wife, where there were some people in my family, some people I considered close friends at the time. It was a lot of toxicity between drugs, a lot of crazy shit happening, alcoholism. And I was very angry, but it's hard to express that with people that you're like, but I love them because it builds up.
Hmm.
So the way I expressed that was I wrote an unpublished piece, a novel where there's a lot of violence in it. And then eventually found folks in the horror genre. And I was still nervous to see, is this too far? Are they going to think I need a straight jacket or whatever? That's just what I thought, you know?
Hmm.
And then you meet like-minded people and you're like, wait a minute, there's like a bunch of people that get praised for this work and get paid for it. Now, my question for you is, did you have a similar experience when you started writing? Were you nervous to, and especially, I gotta imagine, I don't want to assume, but I would imagine that it's maybe a little bit more nerve-wracking as a woman and as a woman of color than being a straight white dude that's doing this, putting them out there. So, am I hitting the nail on the head at all?
No, absolutely. Being a woman of color and just being virtually like, okay, I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know where to start. I'm just going to do it. But yeah, I was in a point in my life where I was feeling a really huge void, an emptiness, just really not happy. And it was getting worse. And I just decided to do it. I just said, well, it's going to be what it's going to be. I had no idea where it was going to go. I knew where I possibly wanted it to go, but I would have never, um, and I guess that's what's so amazing about the universe. I would have never have um, thought of kind of the road I've taken so far and what I've created and all the books I've written. It was never even in my imagination. It's been better. And so, yeah, you get those nerves, but at the same time, I've always been like a gutsy person. I've always kind of taken risks, and I've always, because I am a woman of color, have had to, in your mind, you just know you have to kind of do or die. There really is no choice because ain't nothing going to be given to you. Ain't nothing going to be handed to you. Sometimes you just have to like say, well, I got to fucking do this, and you do it. And you got to hold your own, and you can't hold back. Um, so yeah, I was in need of something, and for me, horror is something I've always loved, and I just decided to do it. And horror, like you said, it gives you a way to express um, things that you just can't really talk about, just like normally to like on the street, like, hey everyone, it's not like coffee talk. It's like, let's explore this because it's a dark subject, it's dark emotions in the darkness. But when you do explore dark, it's interesting because when you explore dark emotions, dark things in life, experiences through something like horror, crime, speculative fiction, even science fiction, it ironically sheds light on it. You are actively shining a light on the dark parts of the human experience when you explore it through horror and dark fiction. And that's what we need more of in the world, is light and understanding with each other.
That's brilliant. I would actually really love to, if we were all in a coffee shop now, I'd love to just do this with you guys in person. It reminds me of a time when I was with my family in a breakfast shop, and the people behind us, no judgment on their part, but they were just talking about the Bible and stuff. So like, I'm thinking, well, what's the difference? They're both kind of horror books.
No, I know. I mean, there are parts of the Bible you're like, yikes.
Right?
Who was writing that? What were they going through? Yikes.
So like family killing each other, crucifixions,
Yikes.
fire, people getting kicked out of their homes. It's just
Revelation, like you got a dragon with 6 heads and a woman named Babylon, and she's having a baby on the back, and it's gobbling up you're like, what?
Someone was taking some kind of hallucinogenic oil, probably.
Somebody ate the wrong berry that day. they be foraging the wrong thing.
Brennan,
we're sidestepping here, but I can't think of a better segue for you to plug a story in a book that's coming out later this summer.
Do you know the one? The bad book.
Yeah.
Yes, the bad book. I'm like, huh? Yes, I have a story in John Taft's anthology, The Bad Book, and the story's called The House That Demons Built. And I wrote it before the whole Capitol Hill thing happened, and ironically, but there was this huge wind up before that, and anxiety in November, and then anxiety up to January, and a lot of talk about just the changes in democracy in the country and freedom of speech. There were all these discussions going on, and when I had to write the story, I went through the Bible because it's called the Bad Book, and I just kind of went through the passages and different things, and then the one specific passage, because you had to base it on like the Bible and do a twist. I said, wow, that's interesting. That's really, what if what happens to the lingering bad juju, where does it come from? Where does it go? How does it fester and become something even bigger and scarier? And so I took this passage from the Bible and wrote the story. And then I wasn't finished writing it, and the Capitol thing happened, and I was like, oh God, I'm writing this story. Oh my God. But obviously a lot of my stuff has like, there's a positivity to it. So, it does land on a positive foot. But again, like I said, you explore those dark things, and in turn, it does shed some light.
I think there's probably, I know you said that you started it before January 6th, but I think there are probably many, many writers, myself included, who have, a story, whether it's seen the light of day or not, in response to that. Now, I'm kind of curious. I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but what was the response to that like in England?
I think people were really shocked. I was shocked. I think in England, but the thing is, England doesn't have any room to throw stones. I don't think any country, any democracy has any fucking room to throw stones at this point in time. I mean, I think the pandemic has shown that. Look at the response of the governments and kind of, everything. Nobody has any room to throw stones, but people were kind of like, wow, because the US has always prided itself on being this like beacon and being so amazing. And in many ways, there are a lot of amazing things about the US. However, there again, everything has to evolve, everything has to change, everything has to grow. And I would like to think that part of these things that are happening, like the Capitol, were a part of growing pains to be better, to be great, to look at the old established wounds and say, you know what, we're going to stop letting scabs grow and then pick at them. We're going to stop putting a Band-Aid over, you know, a broken bone. We're going to actually change, evolve, grow, fix, treat in the in a way that really makes a difference and matters. So yeah, I think everybody was just kind of like, wow, that's, you just didn't expect that to happen.
Absolutely not.
I think we felt that way too. Patrick, go ahead.
I'm just gonna throw this out there. I'm surprised that, and it's safe to say that there's no right wingers. I think, because I haven't heard them. They're allowed that listen to us. So I'm just surprised that that dude's not in prison. The president and a bunch of his ilk. It's sad.
Never say
but
never. You never know.
I don't want
People,
him in prison.
he
There's other options I would like for him to go through.
you never know. I mean, you know, I mean, again, you never know what's going to happen. You don't know
That's
what
true.
else he might try to do or what other things may come to light, and you will. I mean, you know, look at Jeffrey Epstein. Like,
Yeah. Oh, right.
no one ever thought anything. He probably never, ever in a million years thought he would end up in jail and die in jail, and he did.
Yeah.
And his girlfriend, she probably never thought in a million years that she would go to jail, and she is.
I mean, once you have as much money as them and power, they think they're gods.
Yeah, and they get caught out, didn't they?
They are the
And
type
so,
of people that you kill in your books, and I love that. Which is a good
well,
segue for the Queen of Cicadas.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
Please tell us a synopsis, and then Erica, if you don't mind, would you like to jump in with the first question?
Yeah, I mean, basically, oh God, I'm shit at synopsis, man. I sit there in front of a computer for like an hour with a blank page thinking, oh, give me a novel to write. Don't
You're
give me a
not alone.
synopsis. I
I'm
hate synopsis. Okay,
I'm so sorry.
basically, so no, it's okay. It's okay. Basically, it's a story about. So it starts out with Belinda, and she is kind of a woman in her 40s. Doesn't know you know, her life is a bit like on a pause. She's not very happy, and she goes to a farmhouse that has a very has a history where a Milagros, a farm worker, was murdered, and but she doesn't know it. She's part of this story. She's part of this greater tale of vengeance and hope and rebirth. Um, and it's set in Texas, and it spans across from the conquest all the way to modern day. That's what that's it. And you have the Aztec Queen of the Dead. She's in there.
Yeah, I feel like this one must be just so hard to summarize because there's so much going on. But
I know. That's why I'm like,
Cool. So yeah, so a couple of my questions. This one's going to start off as another compliment comment and then dive into a question.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I really love that your writing can blend the beautiful with the very, very dark. So that was definitely the case in this one. When I picked it up, I felt like I had no idea what to expect. I had just heard that this was coming out, and I was like, "Oh, it's me. I'll grab it. Great."
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So that's something that I've noticed in your works that I've read so far, that you just blend those two things totally seamlessly together. And I've, relating back to my first comment, I've read books where I feel like people try to do that and they kind of fall down on it, where yours kind of seems like poetic. Is that something that comes easily to you?
You know, I think everyone, I truly believe this, and this isn't a unique belief, but I truly adhere to it, that everybody has the shadow part, they have the light. We are yin and yang inside, you know, we have dual energies. And, you know, I've lived a lot of life. You know, I'll be 42 in like 2 weeks. And so I just take from what's inside my soul, what I see in the world, people I know, stories I've been told, history, all of it. And I think all of us are filters, all of us are conduits. You know, we have all of these things around us, swirling above us, around us, inside of us. And you just allow your your heart and your mind to filter those things, and you put it on a page, and that's kind of what I do. That's the best I can explain it. So yeah, I mean, I can't say like, oh yes, it's so easy. It just is. It's not easy. It's not hard. It just is, and I do my best. So yeah, that's the best way to explain that.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
I thought there was more. Sorry.
Okay. Because I think this is good early on, while we still have kind of goddess of filth fresh in our mind. You mentioned the Aztec goddess of death, whose name I will not try to pronounce. I don't know if you want to give it to us.
I will butcher it as well. So
makes me feel less.
We'll keep it.
I
know I've practiced. Okay, let me just put it to you this way. I have practiced saying the name a million times, and I always get it wrong. So I'm not going to disrespect her or anyone by, say, I honestly, who's amazing is there's a writer, his name's David Bowles, and he's great with Nahuatl, and that's the language, that that all of the goddesses' names are from. So yeah, I don't want to disrespect my goddesses.
Pretty fair, but you mentioned that goddess in Queen of the Cicadas, and a different one in Goddess of Filth.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I mean, I remember doing a unit on Aztec lore in like 5th grade, but as a Mexican American woman growing up in Texas, how ingrained is that lore into everyday life?
It's not.
No.
It's not. You have to actively look for it. Now, you have things like Dia de los Muertos, and you have where that's kind of part of it coming to the surface. However, it's not like something you're taught, because there's a lot of assimilation that goes on. And when you're Mexican American, you are kind of in between both cultures, the American culture, the Mexican culture, and it's up to the individual how much that they dive into it. I've chosen to dive into it because that's my ancestry. That's important to me. I think it's beautiful. And yeah, so it's something that you need to go out and search for yourself if you so choose.
At what point in your life did it really capture your interest and made you want to dive into it?
I mean, I've always been interested in it. I've always, always loved my culture. But when I started writing horror, and I've always read horror, and I've always watched horror films, and that was always missing. My culture, me, I've never been represented. And so when I started writing, I was like, you know what, I want to take this in a different area. I want to take this in a different road. I want to bring those stories to the forefront. I want to really explore it. I really want to find out. And also, and this is in my new book that my agent has, I took a DNA test like Lizzo. I'm 100% that bitch. No, I'm also 49%. No, but I took a DNA test to 23andMe to find out like the whole breakdown of my heritage and where my people are from in Mexico and my indigenous roots and my Spanish roots and I wanted to find it all. So both my parents are Mexican American and so both of them are from Mexico, our ancestors. My On my dad's side, I'm second generation. On my mom, I'm like fourth, so or third. So I really wanted to explore it. But as I got older and had children, it became a bigger pull. Again, it's individual. It's all what's calling to your soul.
I think it's all fascinating. I remember being very wrapped up. Now, this is probably mostly because the fifth grade boy in me found the concept of human sacrifice very interesting. It's one of those units that I remember better than some of the other ones. I think there's a rich depth to it that unfortunately a lot of people probably don't know much beyond the human sacrifices, and
Yeah.
that's one of the great benefits to a book like this that explores it from your perspective. Was that a consideration, or was it just a story you felt like you needed to tell?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things beyond the human sacrifice that people need to understand, but the concept of sacrifice, because you see in Queen of the Cicadas, sacrifice is a big theme, but we sacrifice in many different ways. So yeah, it's very kind of like interesting to know about human sacrifice, and it's gory and grotesque and like, oh my God. But um, sacrifices are a part of life. We all have to make sacrifices, big or small. And so that's kind of a theme that I explored in that in general. Like, what were the sacrifices some of these people made in general? What sacrifices? You had no choice, sacrificing love because it would not be accepted, sacrificing your needs and wants, sacrificing your body, your soul. So that's for your children, for their survival. So yeah, that's what I kind of wanted to touch on, that theme on a deeper level.
No, I want to give you my take on something in the story, and I want you to tell me if I'm completely off base or expand on it, whichever way. But when I read uh, Milagros' story, um, I couldn't help but view it as a perspective. We're always taught to look at both sides of a story, and even though the educational system clearly does not do that. But I feel like when we witness the events that happen to Milagros, it's written in a way that there is no dual perspective there. There is no way to justify the actions on the other side. There is no way to justify the complete and utter lack of humanity and just the cruelty that happens to this migrant worker. Now, was that something that you did on purpose?
Yes, because hate has no purpose in this world. Because again, the Queen of the Dead is a flayed woman. You peel back our skin, you peel back all of the superficial things that we place our worth in. We're all the same if you strip it down. If you take away the skin, the superficial, we are all the same. And there's nothing to hate because we all are spirit. We're all flesh. We're blood. We're bone. Peel back our superficial and we look the same. Peel back our gender. We are still the same. Yet we hate, and there is no room for it. There's no excuse to hate the way humans hate each other. There isn't. no matter what your political beliefs, your religious beliefs, your any beliefs. There's no room for it. There's no need for it. And when you look at the world, it all comes from hate. So that's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't do anything but agree wholeheartedly with that. And I think again, I think that particular scene is just so effective in conveying that, is that there's nothing, you can't get within 10 miles of a justification there. It's hate, pure and simple. And when you read it, you hate you.
Yeah.
Which I suppose is the only way it can exist in order to hate
And that's
itself.
the whole, that's like, the point. And sometimes people say, like, why can't we have stories that are just, joy and this and this and this? Because we live in a really awful world and we need to discuss these things. We can't just sugarcoat them anymore. So
Haven't earned it. we haven't earned sunshine and rainbows and lollipops all day.
no. Bitch, I want mermaids and unicorns as much as the next person, okay?
Erica, I've been hogging the questions. Go ahead.
Oh no, this is perfect, because kind of on the topic of hate, I love that your work centers around that vengeance and revenge. And I think it's even more powerful when you've got scenes like that where you're just like, wow, yeah, I hate the people that are doing this to her. I don't want to see them have a happy ending.
No, and they don't.
Yeah, love it. Every time I love it. And I love to, when you set up stories like this, like obviously this one was very to the point, but you also have some stories where you kind of like sprinkle it in a little bit, and then you slowly start to hate certain characters. Is that something that we can expect in your future stories that you're working on?
Yeah, so the generational curse of La Llorona, which is with my agent looking for a home, is very personal. So it deals with postpartum depression and the story of La Llorona. And that one's a real complicated one because it deals with mental health, it deals with perception versus reality. And yeah, there are people that you might not like and you're like, what? But it's a very centered story. But the one, so I have, talking about hate, in November, Mestiza Blood drops from Flame Tree Press, and it's my short story collection. And I have, quite a few stories with the kind of people you'll be like, oh, they're gonna get it. So yeah, you'll get more from Mestiza Blood. And then and then the two other novels I have, we'll see what happens. But yeah, that is a thing that I kind of do where you're like, who is this?
Cool. I love it.
Thank you.
Looking forward to that new release.
Thank you.
Erica, do you have anything else on Queen of the Cicadas?
Just, I guess, another comment. It doesn't really tail into a question, but Hector's storyline. So talking about like postpartum and, trying to build things like that. I talked about this very briefly on another episode, but, my husband and I have been trying for a while. Nothing's been happening yet. So we're starting to go through some blood tests and things like that. So now I'm like more sensitive when stuff like that pops up in books, where before it like didn't even faze me.
Mm-hmm.
But Hector's storyline, even though he was not like a full focus character, but he was there a lot. I feel like you handled that whole thing really well. So I'm very curious to see what the upcoming release is like. I'm sure that was very painful, but kind of like therapeutic to write and get out there. And I think those stories are so important because it still seems like kind of a taboo subject where people are like, oh, don't talk about that. It's your personal life. Like, do that behind the scenes. It's fine. Everything will be fine. And I like that in your work, you're just like, well, no, it's not fine. And here's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I have my daughter now, but it was a long road. It was a long road. I didn't think it was going to happen. And, it was, in this new book that I hope finds a home, I touch on that, like, the struggle there is, loss. In Mestiza Blood, there is a story called The Latin Queens of Mictlan. And there's a very personal story in there dealing with a miscarriage. And it's, again, that's another thing that you don't really talk about, is like, what really happens. And it's one of those things where you suffer a loss. And again, with sacrifice, what do you do? In the story, I touch on where the character is suffering a loss, but it's the day of her child's birthday. And instead of canceling the birthday, she just goes through it and allows it to happen all day during the party, because she doesn't want to let the guests down. She doesn't want to let her child down. She doesn't want to let anyone down. So she allows the loss to happen without anybody knowing and enduring that pain. So, yeah, we need to talk about those things. Especially as women, because we put it on our shoulders, and we're like, no, we have to sacrifice. We have to bear the loss so that others can be happy. And it's hard.
And it feels like a lot of the time, I'm going to say you, I said we, that's wrong. You might feel like you can't talk about it because that's just kind of what society says. And it all stems from a place of, when people say we don't talk about this, it's just another way of saying that I care more about my comfort than your discomfort.
Yeah.
And that's, when you break it down to that point, it's just, it's wrong and it's indefensible.
Well, the way I see it is that, there's so much wrong with society. There's so many broken things about society. Fuck what society thinks. Go for it. Write that story. Be kind. Do the thing. Fuck it. We need to make change. We need to evolve as people, as a society. The time is now. So yeah, write those stories, publish those stories, talk about those stories. Let people feel and breathe and be open about it, because it's worse to hold it in. It's worse to feel alone.
Since you've been writing, V, I'm curious if you feel more. I'm going to use a phrase or something that you talked about, the universe. Because I'm in the same camp as you. Not to get all preachy, but going back and forth from religion, what do you believe in?
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I think for me, it's the universe, energies, and so forth. So I'll use that from here on out for this episode when I talk about this. But do you feel more connected to the universe ever since you started writing and exploring all your truths, all the things that you have internally that you're battling with? And a big one, I know that you can probably relate to this. Ever since I had my son, I'm scared of every single thing hurting him. He choked on this little thing, this little confetti thing we found at a park, and it scared the shit out of me. I got it I did the whatever the hell that thing's called. But I want him to have fun, and internally I'm freaking out. So I expressed that recently with all these kids going through horrible things. And it's not me trying to gross anyone out, but Chuck Palahniuk told me and Brennan that is your way of dealing with your biggest fears. So back to my question was, do you feel more connected with the universe now that you're writing and expressing yourself? And as a parent, so this is a two-part question, I guess. Do you feel a little bit at ease or therapeutic when you're writing with fears that have to do with your child?
Well, first, I'm glad your baby's okay, and it does get easier. I will warn you, it does. So it gets easier, and it gets scarier. Scarier, as in like when they start with the attitude, and oh my Lord.
Girl, he's already got it. He's not at two yet.
Yeah, I feel. I definitely feel more tapped into like you know, my spiritual side, and since writing, and since, because it was all part of it. It was all part of this kind of like um awakening, this aha moment, this something is so not right inside of me, around me. I just I had to I had to something had to change. And like I actually stopped drinking December 31st, and I didn't drink again until like mid-May. And I had one
Wow.
glass of prosecco. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I gave it up.
Congrats.
Thank you. I had one glass to celebrate. But yeah, I really had to have a clean break and just like cleanse myself. And um, so yeah, I do feel the writing and being positive, and um, it's just kind of something's changed in me, and hopefully in some way it can help others, even if it's one person. And as far as my children, they're gonna look back and they'll be like, my mom was fucking insane. When did she write this? When did she do this? Today, my 15-year-old was like, Mom, I want a quesadilla. Excuse me, please, thank you. Okay, mommy, I love you. They don't care, honestly. He's like, whatever, cool. Yeah, all
Yeah.
right. They don't care. He wants his quesadilla and his. He's like, where's my quesadilla? Where are my nachos? Because he loves,
Oh, they're so good.
yeah, he
Um,
likes the kind of junk Tex-Mex that I make.
I would probably too if you were making me food. That sounds delicious. I remember, this kind of reminds me of when Peter Straub was going through some life or death situations last year. I remember his daughter, I think it's Emma, I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure it's Emma Straub. She was posting stuff about her dad, how she's like, he's written all these horror stories about serial killers and this and that, and I get to live through my dad's eyes and experiences during those phases of his life. And I don't know about you guys, but like that's how I kind of hope my kid perceives my writing. Is there anything? Uh, is that kind of a truth with you as well, V?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the bigger issue, I want my daughter to look back and be like, my mom did this from nothing. I want my children to say like she made something from nothing. She persevered. She worked hard. She believed in herself. Um, so for me, it's almost bigger than them looking back at my life and my life experience. It's like she did this thing and she didn't give up, and she tried to be a positive force, and she wanted to be a light. Because they may just say like, yeah, the shit she wrote was bonkers. I mean, bananas, really. And like, how did she think about these things? But yes, they might look back and say like, wow, she really went through a lot, but she persevered. So for me, that's the bigger lesson: is if my mom can do it, I can do it.
That's great. Brennan or Erica, jump in, please. I've been hogging the airtime.
You know what? We've mentioned Mestiza Blood a few times out in November. Let's talk about that. One of my questions about it is it all original, or are you bringing back any stories that have been previously published that people might have missed? I'm thinking of Kukui of Cancun, or even Lobster Trap from We Are Wolves.
Just the Latin Queens of Mictlan, because that was part of an anthology that didn't really get a lot of airtime. It was just kind of so that one is coming back, the Latin Queens of Mictlan, and but everything else is new. Everything is new, and it blends folklore. There are a few stories about sex work, uh, urban legends, a lot of urban legend from Texas growing up. And just like, yeah, a blend of everything. kind of like me.
How did you set about, once you have that bunch of stories in front of you and you know that they're all going to be put together in one book, how did you go about sorting the order? What's your process? Especially since you've done a little editing work as far as Latinx Screams is concerned.
Yeah, so I mean, I just honestly, I just like cut and pasted them, and then the editor was like, "Oh, I think you should move these around." Okay. As far as the order, I didn't really have an idea. I just put them where I thought they. Oh, sorry. There's one more. There's a Christmas story that I wrote for Kendall Reviews that years ago. That's in there, and it's called "The Most Wonderful Time of the Year," and that was just on the website. But
What was that?
Years ago, like 2 years ago or something.
Man, I missed
A
that
Christmas
one
story.
somehow.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, I didn't really, I had no clear idea about the order. It was just kind of like, oh, here they are. And then, Dawn was like, oh, move this around. And then that was it.
I asked this last time. So it's kind of jumping back on an old question about what it was like to work with Dawn, but now that you've worked with quite a few editors, and I'm gonna speak for Brennan here too. In our opinion, one of the best for the last, God, at least 20 years in this genre. You probably have a lot more experience of what to look for and how to approach writing, I would think, with your first drafts, your early drafts, and so forth. What advice would you give younger writers that don't have that experience to try to sell their manuscript, maybe their first manuscript?
Again, like, don't edit your voice. Don't feel self-conscious, especially if you're from a marginalized community. Or you're talking about a subject like mental health, and you've experienced that. Don't edit your voice. Like, just be yourself, be authentic, because that is what's going to connect. Just be authentic, and just go over it, read over it. You can have a beta reader, because honestly, I swear to God, you can like read the same paragraph like 3 times and you'll still miss like that comma, or I mean, I have looked at manuscripts and I've spelled like mixed up spelling here and here, and I'm like, I know the difference, but how did I miss that? Like stupid stuff like that, or like it's, and I miss the apostrophe like 10 times, and it should be little things like that. You read something so many times, you just like, and it's almost embarrassing. You're like, oh my God, how did I? um, but you just go over it and over it. And again, like I said, have an open mind. If you get a few editors pointing out the same thing, if you have beta readers pointing out the same thing, have an open mind to change it, or don't look at it and go back to it. So I would say the most important thing is be authentic, be open-minded to feedback, and then just read over it, keep going, even if it means putting it aside for a little bit.
It's fantastic. Anyone else want to jump in?
Just on the topic of Dawn and Flame Tree, we talked about this a lot in the last episode, but so here we are 6 months later. No, sorry, like 8 or 9 months later, and I'm just still so pleased for you to see them
Thank you.
pick up not only one but two of your books, to see that much in your work that they're going to go out and they're going to say, we not only do we want, this novel that it's raw and it speaks to us, but to grab a short story collection as well, because those aren't easy sells all the time. So for them to believe in your work that much, like, I love it. It makes my heart happy.
Thank you. Same here, because I love Mestiza Blood. I loved it. And I was like my thing. I wanted it so bad to get published, and yeah, the collections are notoriously difficult. So I was like, wow, and yeah, kind of. So I'm excited about it. Again, like there's one story in there called "The Demon in My Eye," and about like a woman who's a bat, and it's like a dystopian, like post-apocalyptic, and she's half bat because she was like taken by a lab, and all this stuff. It's bizarre. It's wild.
That sounds awesome.
So I am really like psyched for this whole collection to come out. But yeah, it meant a lot to me for it to come out, and I cannot wait for November. And I'll be at Scares That Care in like 28 days. No, more than 28 days. Like July 29th is, or the 30th, I don't know, the 30th. So if anyone's listening, yeah, come to Scares That Care, and then I'll be at the in October, the book festival.
Merrimack Valley Book Festival. For Scares That Care, do you have a table?
Yes, Flame Tree.
Oh, okay. Do you know who else is going to be at that one with you?
I think Jonathan Hunter. I think those two I know for sure will be there from Flame Tree. I'm not sure about anyone else. I don't know.
My wife's going to kill me. I don't know how I'm not going to buy all these books. I'm going to be there. I can't wait to see you guys. It'll be my first time, so I'm pumped. I'm going to be at the Silver Shamrock table representing the show, and not really selling much besides like 15 books of an anthology. It has nothing to do with that publisher. Because Ken was like, yeah, I don't care. So I'll be there with Todd Kiesling.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so if there'll be one author at the table, that's good.
Well, I can't wait to see everybody because post-pandemic, this is like the first time, like everything's been virtual, everything has been, so it'll be awesome to like meet the people you've only spoken to or interacted with on social media and email. So yeah, I'm excited, and it's for a good cause.
Yeah. You know what? Scares That Care will be fun. But Merrimack, is it Merrimack Valley Book Festival? Did I even say that? Okay.
Yeah.
So that one looks like it's going to be the biggest one in the genre.
The lineup is insane.
And you are in that lineup. So please tell us
how. I can't believe it. I was like, what?
Tell us all about it. How'd that come about?
Christopher Golden blurbed Latinx Screams and the Queen of the Cicadas, and then he just reached out to me.
That's awesome. Brennan, do you know the list off the top of your head?
Oh my gosh, I know a couple. I know Paul Tremblay will be there. Brian Keene, Mary San Giovanni. I'll be there. Obviously, that's top billing.
Spit my coffee out.
Trismar, Victor Laval, lot.
Sadie Hartman will be there.
Sadie Hartman, Kiesling, Mike Clark. God, who else?
Well, nobody tuned in to hear us read a long list, but the point is there are going to be a ton of absolutely stellar. I was excited to go to this before. This will be the first time I get to go to something like this, and for the lineup just look the way it does. V, I didn't expect to see you on there just because you're all the way over in London, and I'm thrilled.
Yeah,
we'll have
I'm excited.
The four of us will get together. We'll have to do a picture or something.
Yes, absolutely. I'm down. I'm ready.
Heads up, I am as tall or a little bit taller than Jonathan J. So I'm a big guy.
Okay.
I saw the picture with you and Jonathan from StokerCon. And
he's huge.
Yeah.
I'm 4'11". I'm not even 5 foot, so everybody's like a giant to me.
Well, I don't know how to follow that up, but Merrimack is going to be fun. It's free to enter or to go in there, and
it's free.
It's in Rob Zombie's hometown, Haverhill, Massachusetts.
Cool.
I wish she was there. That'd be awesome. Erica. Yeah, right. Erica, why don't you take us away with something else?
Yeah, so to completely change direction, I was reading through your website and I started laughing so hard when you said that you dislike rom-coms except for Love Actually.
Yeah.
that is one of my favorite movies, but I too not a big fan of rom-coms. It's like that in The Holiday. That's it. That's straight
Yeah,
horror,
I'm
Boondock
just
Saints, things like
not.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to ask, do you have a favorite character from that movie?
Love Actually.
Mm-hmm.
I love, oh God, I love all of it. Well, Liam Neeson is hot for one. And then I love the scene that always gets me, and like, oh, where he shows up at the door with the big cards and he's like, to me you're perfect.
Aw.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that just like grabs my fucking heart. Ugh. I love, he's hot too, and he's like sweet, and he does that. I love that. Um, ah, favorite character. I mean, the guy who goes, the caterer, the young guy who goes to the U.S. because he's like he can't find a girl, and then I love it. Denise Richards at the end where she's like, "Hey," that's awesome. I like them all. I like all the characters. Oh, I like it all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't remember his name in the movie, but is his name Hugh Grant, the actor?
Yep.
Yes, the who's the prime minister.
Yeah, when he goes dancing through that doorway, that is my
Yeah.
scene.
And I love the sweet scene, the writer with the Portuguese, she's
Mm.
like the housekeeper. Oh, I love that. And she like jumps in the pond for his, oh, I'm like, and he shows up and he goes all that way, to find her. And it's just like, it hits him. He's like, she's the one. Like, I, f- I just, you know, for me, like someone to look at you and be like, you're just the fucking one now and forever. You're just the one. Um, like there's something really spiritual about that, and like just real, and it crosses time, it crosses just everything. So yeah, that movie is like,
Yeah, if you guys haven't watched it yet, go watch it.
For rom-coms, and I had to look this up, but it considers it a rom-com. The movie's called Yesterday, when the Beatles suddenly vanish, and there's very few on the planet that remember that they were a thing. And the main character, is a guitarist, and his one is the person that's been helping him from the beginning, and he's just singing all these Beatles songs. He has to remember them word for word, and he becomes a big hit. And the corporations are trying to like say like the White Album that won't sell, and it's funny. There's a love story in it too. There's plenty of music, so that's the movie I'd throw out there if anyone's interested.
okay.
Brennan, how about you?
I'm having trouble bringing one to mind. I have not seen. My favorite actor in that movie is Alan Rickman, but I think I remember seeing.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was great, I should say.
Totally.
Rest in peace, sir.
Die Hard.
So,
So where do we go from that?
I know there's no way to follow that up. I knew it was going to derail us, but I had to ask. I do have another one just at the top of my list, but speaking of your website, you have a page dedicated to diverse books by diverse authors. So
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that? And maybe, Brennan, I know you had questions about Fright Girl Summer, so I think those will go nicely together.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I just don't have any time to like update that anymore. And it's been really slow just because personal stuff and life stuff. Doing more with Fright Girl Summer. But yeah, it's just because again, when I was starting out, not seeing a lot of places for people from marginalized communities to kind of have their books celebrated and pushed to the front. Um, we started that, and it was something that grew from my own kind of like, oh, where do I start? And then seeing, oh wait, there's nothing like that, there's nothing that's really pushing it, we need to push more, and just trying to kind of again try to be a light, try to be a positive force, because I think you'll get more done with that than negativity and hate. So it's kind of like, let me do what I can, even if I can't constantly do it and I can't dedicate all my time, at least it's a start. At least it's something. Because if we all did just something, it'll all add up. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of shout out a few people, a few books. You never know, someone is going to look at it and it'll make a difference to that author. It'll make a difference to the person who reads it. They'll tell it to someone else. There is a knock-on effect to the smallest of things, and oh, there is a knock-on effect to the small little things that we do. Don't ever think that your kindness, your positivity, your light is too small to make a difference. You don't know how far it'll travel. So why not do it?
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
Erica mentioned Fright Girl Summer, and you've been doing that for a year now.
Yeah.
It was kind of the impetus for us having you on in the first place.
Thank you. It's slowed down though because of life stuff, but
yeah. Well, I mean, of course, as things do, but it's the list has of authors for people to check out has continued to be on the and there's a year under your belt of publishing stories and essays from women from all over the horror genre. So is at this point, is it more of just almost a resource for people to look at, or do you have plans for the future with it?
yeah, I mean, we still want to publish people. Eve Harms is going, well, her book is coming out, so we're doing something for Eve Harms. It is definitely going to stay up as a resource, but also I will try when I can to do a little bit more. But right now I'm just like under the gun, and I've had things happen personally that I need to, attend to. So yeah, I'm just kind of like going with the flow, see what happens. Again, it's at least it is a resource. You don't know who's going to look at it and what books are going to choose and how that's going to. So yeah, I wanted to stay up and just do as much as I can when I can.
That's awesome. Erica, unless you have any more questions, I'd really love to go to what are you reading now, starting with V. So you got anything else?
Nope, that was it. Perfect timing.
Speaking of reading, V, what are you currently reading?
My own manuscripts. It's like really hard right now. I have no open books. I did write the foreword for Sonora Taylor's new collection.
Oh.
And that was really good. I enjoyed the stories. But other than that, and I have Dark Stars edited by Taff, but I haven't had a chance to finish it. But yeah, I've just been under the gun. So I haven't really I haven't had time to read.
No, that's not a bad thing. I mean, that just means more of your books are going to be out.
Yeah, exactly.
Erica, how about you?
Yeah, so kind of similar. I've had a lot of personal stuff going on. We're back in the office for the first time since last March, so I'm trying to just be gentle. I know it's rough. I actually broke out in a rash the third day. Like, I'm allergic to something here. Great. So yeah, so I was trying to navigate that, but I just started reading. I'm going to butcher the title, so I'm just going to. Hopefully one of you guys knows it, but the new Ronald Kelly book, the Tales About the Spiders. I just started that. Bad idea for me, but I'm going to continue reading. I am petrified of spiders. So they're nasty, nasty little things. I started it late one night and I was sitting in bed and I was like, every little tickle that I'm feeling now is jumping me. But it's really good so far. I'm only a couple stories in, so I'm really excited to see where he keeps going from here, because I'm sure, I mean, just the titles of the stories, I'm like, oh God, I'm in way over my head. But then I'm diving into Slattery Falls, so wicked excited about that, Brennan.
I'm not nervous at all. I feel great.
It'll be great, I'm sure.
What's Slattery Falls?
So ignoring that, when you did you read Ronald Kelly's The Essential Six stuff?
No, I don't think so.
This book could be your first time reading the story Housewarming. Did you get to that one yet?
No, I don't think so, because that doesn't sound familiar.
I hate it so much.
Oh God!
Exactly the way that you were talking about. So enjoy that one.
Right, thank you.
Brennan, how about you, man? What you reading?
I've got a couple things. I am a little ways into Goblin by Josh Malerman, and it's so up my alley. It's weird small town mosaic novel, and I absolutely love both of those things. And he's just creativity incarnate, so it's going to be interesting. It's going to hold your attention. The other one that I am super excited to talk about, I literally just started this morning, and I'm already a third of the way through it, and I honestly, I might finish it today, is Go Down Hard by Ali C.
Ooh.
And it is C, by the way. I looked it up so I wouldn't butcher it. And it's just so engaging. It sets up like something you've read before, and then 15 pages in just completely flips on its head. Yeah, I'm really interested. I'm probably going to go back to that after we're done here.
That's very cool, man. So I'm only reading 2 books. I've already said this in a few episodes, so nothing new, but The Throat by Peter Straub and The Books of Blood, Volume 1 through 3 by Clive Barker. I'm going to be adding to that shortly. So, yeah, that's all I got. Hey, listeners, if you are interested in Dead Headspace merchandise, go to deadheadspace.com. Click on the store tab. You can also check out articles from a few guest columnists, articlists. I don't know what the proper terminology is. Reviews as well. And let's jump to V. Where can people follow you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Twitter at VLatinaLondon, all one word. vvcastro.com. Yeah, so that's me. Fright Girl Summer, www.frightgirlsummer.com. Check out the reading lists. Yeah, so you can basically find me there. That's how you can follow me, and I'm typically around. I jump on and off of Twitter, but I'm typically on Instagram. So yeah, say hi, tag me, whatever.
And I guess that leads us to our final thoughts. V, do you have any final thoughts?
My final thought is just be kind to each other, especially on social media. Just be kind. Just be cool. If you got something nice to say, say it. If you don't, not everybody needs to know. Like, honestly, there are enough opinions. If you can say things without cutting people down. You can be, you don't have to feel you're censored. It's just called being kind. It's called being nice. It's called be the light. Don't be an asshole. That's all.
That little
kindness.
Yeah, that little bunny in Bambi said basically, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So that's pretty good advice. Erica, final thoughts.
Yeah, I'm so excited to meet you guys all in person this fall.
Yay!
Yeah, it's like right around the corner from where I live, I feel like, so I'm really excited because I'm completely out of vacation time. So I was like, oh no, I can't do much, but this one's pretty local, so that'll be exciting. So I'll see you guys there.
Eric LaRocca will be there too. I forgot to mention. Man, we've literally talked about him for 4 episodes straight now, so it'll be nice to see him in person. Brennan, final thoughts.
My final thoughts are that bunny from Bambi has a name, and it's Thumper.
Damn it.
Beyond that, V, we're always happy to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, we don't invite people back 3 times unless we really.
That's big kisses. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Caught it.
For everybody out there. Mwah, mwah.
My final thoughts are I'm echoing Brennan and Erica. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you as always. And I can't wait for Merrimack. Can't wait for Scares That Care.
I know. Yeah, it's going to be good.
And Gabino's going to be at Scares, and I can't wait to give that big bastard a hug.
Yeah, he's big.
Listeners, next episode. Well, actually, before we jump to that, today is July 1st. Also, if you're interested, Unburying the Dead has episode 5 out. We have our first guest host, the probably kindest human in the horror genre, Jonathan Jans. He talks to us about Peter Benchley's Jaws, and we compare notes with the film, and it's a good time. Next episode for Dead Headspace is episode 100 with Joe Lansdale. That airs this Monday. There's a few new things for the video version, so stay tuned for that. And as always, thank you for picking us to listen to. You have many choices in podcasts.